descent begins, the eye that watches you. There is a part of you that never speaks, yet it controls almost everything you do. And the strange thing is this: it isn't the fear of failing that shapes your life, it's the fear of being seen failing. Most people live with an invisible audience inside their mind, not real people, but imagined observers. The version of them you carry inside you, judging, questioning, evaluating, and without noticing, you begin performing for that audience, softening your desires, shrinking your voice, choosing the safe emotion over the true one. This video is about that silent habit, the one that bends your decisions, distorts your confidence, poisons attraction, and makes you chase people who do not deserve you, not because they're powerful, but because you fear what it would mean to disappoint them. Tonight, we'll walk into the deeper layers of your psychology, the ones hidden beneath your reactions, your cravings, your defensiveness. You'll see why some people hold so much power over your mind, even when they give you so little in return. And if you stay until the end, you'll understand something most people never discover. The moment you stop watching yourself through someone else's eyes is the moment you become impossible to control. My voice is PsycheLure, calm, direct, unhurried. I don't push you, I reveal you to yourself. Now let's begin the descent, the philosophy under the skin, why you feel watched. There is a truth most people never realize. You don't respond to life itself. You respond to the meaning you attach to it. Two people can live the same moment, hear the same words, experience the same silence, yet one feels wounded while the other feels nothing. Why? Because your mind is not a camera, it is a sculptor. It shapes reality according to the story you believe about yourself. And here's the deeper layer, a layer rarely spoken out loud. Everything you think, avoid, desire, or fear serves a purpose, not consciously, but structurally. Your emotions are not random storms. They are instructions, signals produced by the goals you've set without realizing it. If you fear rejection, it's because you've already decided that someone else's approval is the prize. If you feel inferior next to someone, it's because your mind secretly made them the standard you must reach. If you feel invisible, it's because you've adopted an identity that shelters you from being fully known. This is what most people miss. Your inner world operates on a design, not a destiny. A design built from interpretations, comparisons, tiny humiliations, and the desire to finally be enough. And here is the uncomfortable question this section leads us to, a question you'll feel in your chest more than your mind. If your emotions obey your hidden goals, then what hidden goal is shaping the way you suffer? Hidden goals, the ego behind the curtain. Most people believe their emotions just happen, but emotions are not spontaneous. They're engineered. They are tools your mind creates to protect an identity you're afraid to lose. Fear, for example, is not an enemy. Fear is a strategy. A shield your ego deploys when it believes the truth might expose you. Think about this. The moments that make your heart race. Not meeting someone new, but being evaluated by them. Not confessing what you feel, but imagining how they'd respond. Not failing privately, but failing where someone can see it. That's because your ego has one silent command. Don't let them discover who you really are. So it creates emotions that keep you from stepping forward. Anxiety becomes a fog that hides you. Overthinking becomes a stall mechanism. Numbness becomes camouflage. Even desire plays this game. When you're drawn to someone emotionally unavailable, it's not because your heart is naive. It's because your ego prefers longing over risk. Longing feels safer than intimacy. Craving someone who withholds gives you a loop. Pursuit without vulnerability. Here's the deeper truth. Hidden goals shape your emotional patterns far more than your conscious intentions. You may say you want love, yet choose the person who guarantees emotional distance. You may claim you want confidence, yet cling to the very habits that keep you small. You may swear you want peace, yet entertain the thoughts that keep your mind restless. Why? Because the ego behind the curtain fears the cost of becoming visible more than the pain of remaining unfulfilled. So here is the question you must sit with. If your fear protects you, what is it protecting you from? Trauma reframed, the story you chose without knowing. There is a moment in everyone's life when reality wounds them, and another moment, far quieter, when they decide what the wound means. Most people never notice the second moment, but that is the one that shapes the rest of their life. Pain leaves a mark, yes, but meaning is what turns the mark into a narrative. Two people can be abandoned. One becomes terrified of closeness. The other becomes obsessed with proving they're worth staying for. The event was the same. The interpretation was not. This is why your past feels heavier than it should. Not because of what happened, but because of the role you assigned yourself in the story. Maybe you told yourself you were unwanted. Maybe you assumed you needed to earn affection. Maybe you believed silence meant failure and love meant performance. These weren't conscious decisions. They were emotional shortcuts, taken at a time when you didn't know you had a choice. Trauma doesn't imprison you with the event. It imprisons you with the explanation you built around it. And here is the quiet, nearly painful truth. You didn't hold on to the past because you're weak. You held on to it because it gave structure to your fear. It justified your hesitation. It protected you from trying again and risking another collapse. But protection has a cost. It freezes you into the version of yourself that formed in the moment of the wound. So, before we go deeper, sit with this question. If pain shaped you, why does the meaning still have power over you today? Why we choose unhappiness, the secret logic of staying broken. Most people insist they want happiness. They swear they want peace, confidence, love, freedom. But if you watch their patterns, you'll notice something unsettling. People don't avoid unhappiness. They return to it, like it's familiar territory. That's because unhappiness isn't just an emotion. It's a strategy, a quiet, unconscious method your mind uses to keep you safe from the one thing it fears most. Exposure. Think of how often your pain has protected you. If you stay uncertain, you never have to risk being wrong. If you stay lonely, you never have to risk being rejected. If you stay invisible, you never have to risk being judged. If you stay not ready, you never have to risk failing publicly. Unhappiness creates walls you can hide behind, walls that say, I would have tried. If only I wasn't so hurt, so anxious, so overwhelmed. And this is where the trap tightens, because the moment your sadness becomes a shield, you stop wanting solutions, you start wanting permission to stay where you are. Your mind begins offering you subtle rewards for suffering, sympathy, lowered expectations, emotional distance, excuses that feel morally justified. Unhappiness becomes a familiar room, small, dim, but safe. A place where the world cannot disappoint you because you've already done the job yourself. Here is the paradox no one recognizes until much later. It's not pleasure you fear losing. It's your narrative. The narrative that says, I hurt, and that explains why I don't have to risk growth. And once that narrative forms, it becomes addictive, not because it feels good, but because it feels known. So ask yourself with brutal honesty, if unhappiness has been protecting you, what would collapse if you finally let it go? The approval trap, how the need to be chosen, makes you easy to control. There is a moment in life when unhappiness stops being a shield and becomes a currency, a trade, a negotiation with the world that says, if I suffer quietly enough, if I perform beautifully enough, someone will finally choose me. This is the beginning of the approval trap, the psychological cage that turns your life into a performance, your relationships into auditions, and your self-worth into a scoreboard you can never win. 6A. The performance. Self. The need for approval doesn't start loudly. It begins subtly. The small adjustments you make around certain people. You laugh softer. You talk safer. You hide the edges of who you are because you assume the real you is too sharp to be loved. And slowly, you stop interacting with the person in front of you. You interact with their imagined judgment. This is how attraction becomes distortion. You're no longer drawn to who someone is. You're drawn to whoever gives you the illusion of being enough. Their attention becomes proof. Their indifference becomes punishment. Their unpredictability becomes a drug that keeps your nervous system on a leash. And once approval becomes the prize, you live in competition with everyone, not even the people you care about. Someone else's charm threatens you. Their success irritates you. Their confidence destabilizes you. Not because you dislike them, but because your worth is now a ladder, and every person you meet adjusts your position on it. This is why approval addiction is never satisfied. The standard moves, the bar rises, the mirror grows harsher. You are always almost enough, but never quite there. 6B. The hidden transaction. The darker part comes next, when approval turns into expectation. You start doing things for people not because you want to, but because you want to be seen as good, desirable, irreplaceable. You give more than you have. You compromise more than you should. You silence your needs, believing that if you sacrifice enough, someone will finally repay you with certainty. But approval-based giving is never giving. It's bargaining. You say, "I'll be everything you want, so you'll never abandon me." But the moment the other person doesn't reciprocate, even unintentionally, resentment blooms. You feel betrayed, cheated, invisible. Not because they wronged you, but because they failed to fulfill a contract they never agreed to. This is why approval seekers feel deeply unappreciated. Their love is always conditional, but their conditions are always unspoken. Here's the brutal truth this section leads to. Every smile you chase becomes a chain. Every approval you depend on becomes a threat because approval is external, conditional, fragile, something you can gain today and lose by sunset. And until you become someone who no longer fears being disliked, you will always belong to anyone strong enough to withhold affection. So pause here and ask yourself, if approval is this impossible to stabilize, why have you built your life around it? The shift, contribution, presence, and quiet power. If the approval-driven life feels heavy, it's because it runs on scarcity, a belief that love must be earned, value must be proven, and existence must be justified. But there is another way to move through the world, one that does not require performing, competing, or begging, a life built not on being chosen, but on being meaningful. The power of contribution. When approval is the goal, every interaction becomes an evaluation. But when contribution is the goal, every interaction becomes an opportunity. Contribution isn't sacrifice. It isn't martyrdom. It isn't doing more than others to gain their gratitude. Contribution is simple. I add to this moment because it makes me feel alive to do so. It is the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needs applause to validate their worth. You're not trying to impress, persuade, or outperform. You are simply present, and your presence has weight. The paradox is beautiful. When you help others because it aligns with your nature, not because it buys approval, your influence grows effortlessly. People feel it. They trust it. They gravitate toward it. Quiet power is unmistakable. It doesn't ask for recognition. It generates it. The end of competition. When you are no longer chasing approval, something strange happens. You stop comparing. You stop scanning the room for threats. You stop measuring your worth against the highlight reels of others. Someone else's success doesn't shrink you. It expands the space you're allowed to grow into. You can admire beauty without feeling inferior. You can witness confidence without feeling small. You can celebrate others without losing yourself. That is the freedom approval can never offer. Inherent worth, the most radical idea. And beneath all of this lies one idea, ancient but terrifying for the ego. You are already enough to create meaning in someone's world, not because you achieve, perform, or impress, but because your existence carries emotional gravity. Every person affects someone, even without trying. Your tone, your presence, your stillness, your choices, they create ripples in the lives around you. Most people never realize this because they only measure value through achievement. But meaning is not measured in trophies. It's measured in resonance. When you shift from, how do I make them like me, to, how do I create something real here, your entire emotional landscape changes. People sense the difference. Desperation vanishes. Tension dissolves. Authenticity becomes magnetic. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind that lingers long after you leave the room. The warm reversal. This is the moment the descent stops feeling dark. You begin to see the shape of a life no longer dictated by approval, comparison, or fear. A life where contribution replaces performance, presence replaces insecurity, and inherent worth replaces the exhausting hunger to be validated. And that leads us to the final truth. The one that frees you from every unspoken contract, every invisible audience, every self-protective narrative your past created. When you stop trying to be chosen, you become someone who chooses. The final descent into freedom, the courage to be unhidden. There is a quiet moment in every transformation, the moment when you finally understand that happiness is not something you chase or earn or bargain for. It is something that appears the instant you stop abandoning yourself. Most people live as if they must justify their existence, as if being liked makes them real, and being disliked makes them disappear. But look closer. The people who move through the world with clarity aren't liked by everyone. They aren't even understood by most. What sets them free is something else entirely. They no longer fear the cost of being seen for who they are. Notice how your body softens when you imagine that. A life where you don't bend your truth to keep the peace, where you don't shrink your desires to seem agreeable, where you don't swallow your voice to maintain an image that was never yours to begin with. This isn't rebellion, it isn't defiance, it's alignment. The ability to live a life that mirrors your inner world instead of contradicting it. And here is the truth people run from. No matter how carefully you walk, how politely you speak, how perfectly you perform, someone somewhere will dislike you. Not because of who you are, but because of who they become in your presence. You cannot stop this, but you can stop letting it define you. So ask yourself, gently but honestly, if life ended tonight, would you be proud of the way you lived inside yourself? Not what you achieved, not who approved of you, but how true you remained to the person behind your eyes. Because in the end, happiness is not built on applause, it is built on congruence, on walking in a way that feels honest even when no one is watching, especially when they are. And when you finally stop performing for an audience that never existed, a quiet strength rises in you, a strength that no rejection can wound, no indifference can weaken, no judgment can reach. This is the beginning of real freedom. Not the freedom to be liked, but the freedom to live unhidden. If this stirred something in you,